Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Modest Muse in Review with me, Mushra Hartley, the editor of Modest Muse Lifestyle Tabloid. This is the lifestyle show about all things fashion, beauty, decor, and just general lifestyle stuff for Muslim women. With me in studio, I've got Shanaz Moore. She's a registered counsellor. And welcome, Shanaz. Thank you for joining me.
Shukran Mushra for having me. Yes, I'm very excited. This is my first time on the big screen. Been on radio a bit, but okay, I'm transitioning.
Now, Shanaz, you wrote an article in Modest Muse in this issue called Potholes and Cracked iPhones. Tell us, before you tell us a little bit about the motivation for that article, tell us a bit about your background, how it is that you became a counsellor.
Okay, well, before I was a counsellor, I was just an ordinary mommy. So I had a degree when I was a young person. No, there's only amazing mommies. Sorry, correction. But I was I had gotten my degree years ago. Ended up working in finance, and ended up being a stay-at-home mommy when I had my second child. Did that for almost 10 years, and my daughter said to me, "Mommy, you need to find another job." She was 4 years old. And then I realized, okay, she's got a point here, and then my search began, and I reconnected with my degree and the university, and here I am now, a few years later.
So what made you choose counselling? I mean, you could go to many different avenues.
I could have gone, I suppose, but because I started out with the intention of being a psychologist, my interest was always in helping people. It's just in 20 years the how changed, and what I want to focus on changed. And as you get older, they say you get wiser. Yes. Life experience definitely shapes you, and it shows you the direction you need to go in. So I think, I wasn't meant to be a counsellor 20 years ago. I was meant to be one now.
Now, within counselling, there are many different disciplines, and you particularly focus on children, parenting, EQ. Is there a reason why you've chosen that? Is it because of being a stay-at-home mom? Did that
I think that for me, the journey wasn't so much about my own, in terms of doing the emotional intelligence work. It wasn't about my children per se, but the children that I came across through the families I worked with. So I was doing volunteer work before I had my own practice, and we only worked with parents. But I had experiences of how these children perceived their families and the things that parents did. And I realized it went back generations, this thing about not acknowledging feelings, not understanding feelings, that we're supposed to be happy all the time is a myth, that there are so many other emotions besides happiness, anger and sadness. Those are the common ones. Those are the known ones. But children don't know that because sometimes their moms and dads don't know it. So emotional intelligence begins in childhood. How I perceive emotion, how I understand emotion, what happens when I feel a certain way. So the child is taught to identify the emotion, not after the whole thing blows up, oh, you were angry. No, we're talking about, I'm now irritated. Yes, so I understand, yes, I'm irritated. Then the parent knows this is irritation. Let's see, how can we resolve it? How would you like to resolve it? Then if you don't help an irritated child, they become a frustrated child. If you don't help and acknowledge a frustrated child, guess what you get? You get an angry child, and there's no way you can ignore an angry child. They will make themselves heard through a tantrum, through an aggressive outburst. So they will either be attacking, hitting, destroying, shouting, screaming. You can't ignore that. So often we only respond when we're at that point. And I'm saying teach children to identify the emotion in the beginning. So they then learn strategies to resolve irritation. What do I do when I'm frustrated?
And in terms of response, what do you teach parents? Because your natural response to a tantrum child is, I'm going to give you a bloody good hiding now because you're naughty. Because this is my response. I've listened to one of your talks last weekend, and I'm trying to be more conscious of how I respond to my angry or irritated child. So what is it that you teach parents in terms of response?
You know, the thing that parents don't realize is whether you are conscious of it or not, you channel the parenting of your parents. And even though you said as a child, I'm never ever going to say that, lo and behold, there you are standing with a wooden spoon, like your mother, saying the same thing, and you aren't even, and when you do realize it, it's often a little bit late because you've realized, oops, it came out already, what to do now? So it's about being conscious of the parenting that you're portraying. So a lot of people have a belief about how they parent, and then they action it in a different way. Do you know what I'm saying? So the two are not the same. So you need to be conscious of how you parent, and parent in a gentle way, so that you are not hurting yourself or the child in the process.
Did this ethos of parenting in a gentle way, is this what guided you to write this article?
Yeah, the journey that I'm on is from growing out of an angry mommy. So I often refer to myself as Shanaz 2.0, because Shanaz, the first version, was crazy and angry and she was all over the place. But Shanaz 2.0 became conscious and evolved and wanted to manage anger, and she became so passionate she wanted to share this experience with other angry moms. So I thought I had it all under control until the correct iPhone incident, when I realized that my perfectionism is being tested. At the root of the anger was my perfectionist tendency, and when I acknowledged it was there, I thought, okay, there we go, I've done that. I'm not going to be like that anymore. But it doesn't just work with acknowledgement.
It doesn't happen overnight.
It doesn't happen overnight, and it creeped up again. And every time I become angry and I take a conscious step back, I connect again and I realize, oh my word, it's the perfectionism again causing the anger to come out. Can you see the connection, that I hadn't gotten rid of it? Yes. I'd become aware of it, learned to manage it, but what wasn't 100% gone. I don't think it just goes away. You just manage it better.
So what advice do you have to other mommies or daddies who are perfectionists?
Sure, you know.
You impose that
so,
on your kids.
First of all, a lot of people are in denial. So I've had a few anxious children come see me, and when I accidentally, I have a messy desk. So I straighten everything and then I move it untidy, and this little girl got very upset, and I asked her, do you want to straighten it? And she said yes. So I let her neaten my desk, and then I moved an item again, and she got all upset all again. And then I realized that this child is struggling with things that don't fit into her vision of perfection. Trace it back, the mom is like that. For another boy, it was his dad. So anxious children who come, when you can't have the world go exactly how you want, you're going to become extremely agitated. And you have to make peace with that the world is a certain way, that I can't control everything, because at the root of perfectionism is the desire to control. Yes. And you cannot control the entire universe. You sometimes can't even control your own children. The only thing you can control is yourself. And that comes from, it sounds so like, how can I say, meditational kind of thing, but an inner reflection and learning to know yourself is the beginning of the journey, and that's where mine started. And in the beginning, you don't like some of the parts you see, but there it is. It needs to be dealt with, acknowledged, and it needs to be healed so that better parts can grow in its place.
How did your Deen and your spirituality help you overcome, identify?
I think I tell this story on my workshop. Ladies who've been know, it's a personal story, that I was very unhappy, and I was not being the best of mother or best of anything. And I would, every day, when I made dua, that was my request, to be guided, to improve, and I listed the way I wanted to improve. And the first part was to be a Muslim, better worshipper, to then on to be a better mother. So that was my request over and over again. And the more I asked for that, the more connected I felt to myself and to my Creator. It wasn't like I went on this journey into the Navajo desert to find myself. It was more quietly every day. And people say, oh no, you don't share things like that. And I mean, how do you tell somebody else that in order to find the light, you must go to the darkest place? And that's where I was, in the darkest place.
It's like you're tugging at my heartstrings. You're actually bringing a knob to my throat, because I often question, how do I be the best version of me, so that my little girls can be the best versions of themselves, because ultimately we are victims of victims. So if I am a perfectionist, if I'm angry, that is ultimately what they're going to become, and I don't want that for my kids. So, and I always think, how do I change, and where does it start? And you're speaking to the core of me, to say, ask and you shall receive.
I know it sounds like so Hallmark cardy and that kind of thing, but it's a simplistic explanation with a hard reality, that most people are too busy being busy, letting life distract them, and the acquisitions of life's things, without pausing. And when you look again, you're older, your kids are older. And you've missed all of that connecting that could have taken place. And then you hear big people say, oh, my children don't visit me anymore, and they don't have time for me anymore. And you go back 20 years and how much visiting and time did you invest in them?
I saw a picture the other day on Facebook, I think it was. It said, it is easier to correct something along the lines of correct a damaged child than it is to correct a damaged adult. Or make a damage.
Yeah, I know what you're
something like that.
about.
So it starts with us as parents.
It does. And we often think that there's a perfect time to start being this good parent.
Yes.
And
We'll
there's
do it tomorrow, I'm too busy today.
it's every day, and you need to start your journey as soon as you realize it, so that you can be the version of yourself. And not you compared to me. Mushra, don't ever feel intimidated. Oh my goodness, Shanaz does all these affirmations, she does all these things.
Our circumstances are all different and unique.
Me evolving years later. You know what I'm trying to say? Was you only measure you against you. You know, the Mushra last week that was shouting isn't the Mushra that shouted this week. So already there's transformation taking place.
I think as women also, we compare ourselves as mothers. We're like, I listened to your talk last week and you're like, my child is not on that level or at that milestone. I must be doing something wrong. So you push your kids harder as well. We measure ourselves against others, and the circumstances are so completely different.
Yeah. You know what, it comes from back in the day, our mothers raised children as jobs. Do you remember?
Yes.
And if you do have a job, you get promoted and there's accolades and performance bonus. So guess what, if mothering is your job, then how your children behave and their academic success and their sporting success is your it's your pat on the back, and it isn't meant to be like that, because children are not trophies to be held up. Because half of the time you're going to be more disappointed waiting for that. So today the problem is women still carry that with them, and they have careers. So they don't even have all the time that the mommies who were at home had, but they have all the same pressures upon themselves. So you can put the two together and you can imagine what a working mother's day will be like. So I always promote women supporting women, that we are the ones who know our own journeys and our struggles and what it's like to be a mother, what it's like to be a working mother or a stay-at-home mother, any kind of mother. Yet we should be supporting each other by boosting each other's egos and self-esteem and anything that can make the other woman feel better, not judging and criticizing, and that, which is often what happens more. And mostly sometimes in your family, the people you want to support you and how you parent are maybe the most critical of how you parent, which is even worse because you value family's opinion more than others.
Yes. And this is why also Modest Muse was born, to create that sense of sisterhood, empowerment, lifting each other up, celebrating phenomenal women. So lastly, Shanaz, what advice do you have to those working moms or busy moms? I mean, it doesn't mean that you have a career. If you don't have a career, if you're at home, that you have any more time for your kids. We've got lots going on, studies, whatever. What advice do you have to moms with that little bit of time that they have left with their kids? Okay. What do they need to spend it doing?
Sure. I think that moms, you first need to find your own center. You won't be able to enjoy any amount of time with your children if you are not happy. When you are centered and you find what makes you happy, being with your children is fun. You don't count down the minutes and say it's almost an hour, I can go back to my book or I can go back to whatever. You actually don't realize the time and you end up spending more than you even thought you could. So that advice would be, look inward. Don't often send your kids to me because they are just a reflection of how you feel. You know, bring yourself to me first, and then that doesn't work, then bring your children. I'll be happy to help everybody.
Thank you so much, Shanaz. Thank you for joining us in studio. It was an absolute pleasure speaking to you. I've learned so much. Hopefully, I and our viewers can become better parents because of your advice, inshallah. Shukran, everyone. That was Modest Muse in Review. Please join us again next week where we will interview some more phenomenal women.